Steve Robbins here. Welcome to the Get It Done Guys quick and dirty tips to work less and do more. My office is full of piles. Piles of articles written for magazines, piles of books, including Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, The Survival Guide for the Zombie Apocalypse, Zombies vs. Ninjas, and so on. Can you tell I have a thing for zombies? The problem is that I haven't actually read any of these books. A well-meaning friend will look me in the eye and implore with great urgency, "Stever, you absolutely have to read Why Civilization Will Fall Within 5 Weeks." I rush right out to buy the book, not only because my friend recommends it, but because, hey, it came out 2 weeks ago, so there are only 3 weeks left on the clock. Surely reading that book is the best way to use those 3 weeks. Once all those books start piling up, however, they keep piling up. Fortunately, there are 4 things you can do to make it through your book backlog. Tip number 1, realistically assess your backlog. Start by figuring out how much you can expect to read. It's easy. Just get out a book, start a timer, and read 5 to 10 pages. Then divide the time it took by the number of pages to find out how much time it takes you per page. If you spent 15 minutes to read 10 pages, it took 15 divided by 10, or 1.5 minutes per page. Now, frown slightly and stare at your pile of books and magazine articles. Estimate the number of pages. At 250 pages per book with 20 books in my "someday I really will read this, I promise" pile, that's 5,000 pages. Multiply that by the time you just calculated. 5,000 times 1.5 is 7,500 minutes that it will take me to go through that backlog. That's 125 hours worth of reading. If I read only the stuff from the backlog for an entire hour a day, it would take 3 solid months to make it through the backlog. Tip number 2, put a lid on it. Block off your backlog. Now gather together your entire backlog in one physical place. This is your new backlog zone. You can see it all in one place, and from now on, don't add anything new to the backlog zone. The only thing that you can do is to reduce the size of it until it's gone. If you find yourself tempted to add a new reading item to the backlog, you have to get rid of an item in the backlog of the same or longer length, or you have to get rid of the new reading item. But growing the backlog isn't an option. You haven't gotten through it so far, so there is no reason to believe that adding to it will magically give you the time to read that additional item. In short, you may finally have to throw out that copy of Clearing the Clutter that you've been planning to read for the last 10 years. Instead, just check out the Domestic CEOs podcast for tips on easy decluttering. Tip number 3, add a penalty for new books. Now get real. Ask yourself if there's a snowball's chance in heck that you'll actually spend that much time reading. If not, you're keeping your backlog for psychological reasons. Maybe you're trying to prove something to your second grade teacher, or make up for the years you spent as a cheerleader when you really wanted to be studying particle physics. Of course, you and I both know that you won't respect the boundaries of your backlog. So, make an agreement with someone, say a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, spousal equivalent, or polyamorous family unit, or teenagers if you have them. Every time you add a book to your backlog, they get $10. You can bet they'll be watching your backlog like a hawk, generously, selflessly helping you keep your commitment. Tip number 4, make steady progress. Finally, go back to your calculation. You have 125 hours worth of reading to do. Decide when you want your backlog to clear out. If you decide 120 days from now, well, that's about an hour a day that you'll have to read. If you decide a year, 365 days, that's only about 20 minutes a day. Put it in your schedule and start reading. Like anything else, this is a commitment. You need to block out time for it, which means taking the time from some other area of your life, like your bird-watching hobby. For every yellow-crested cockatoo you leave abandoned and lonely, you'll remove one book from your backlog. Tragic on one hand, yet oddly satisfying on the other. Now it's time to jump to it and start dealing with that backlog. And remember, it's made of paper. If society really does collapse in 5 weeks, you can always use those books as kindling until you're devoured by the cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. Everybody wins. This is Steve Robbins. If you like my podcast, please visit my iTunes page and leave a stunningly positive review. This podcast is a labor of love, and the more you can help spread the word, the better we can make it. I've created a brief URL. Go to getitdoneguy.com/iTunes, and that will redirect you right to the iTunes page. I help successful people create space in their lives by getting through their physical and mental backlogs. If you want to know more, visit steverobbins.com. That's SteverRobbins.com. work less, do more, and have a great life.